Hey, how you guys doing? There's a lot of stuff been going on with Apple, especially with the iMac Pro, which is Apple's new and latest iMac designed for the Pro user. And among other things, and some of the other things about Apple, we're actually going to talk about in probably another video. Now, I'm going to look at some of the pros and cons and other things. Tell you the truth, there's a lot of professionals out there that opt to use a regular or a maxed out iMac instead of a Mac Pro. And this even goes before the new redesign. They call it the trash can, obviously. They even did it before that. And of course, we also know there's going to be a new redesign of the new Mac Pro, probably coming in 2018. But Apple has announced they are going to be releasing the iMac Pro coming in December, and it actually looks quite good because I know a lot of people have been talking about doing this or wanting an iMac Pro, and specifically saying that iMac Pro. So we're going to look at some of the specs. Normally I don't do run over specs, but this case I think it is important. And they are looking for a base price of $5K or $49.99. For a lot of people, this is very expensive, and sometimes they're very vocal about it. And sometimes I talk about broke professionals. Sometimes I think people don't realize what's inside of it, because when you're buying an iMac, don't forget you're also buying that screen, or in this case a 5K screen Retina display that goes along with it. So expect the prices to be higher than you instead of you going out and buying just a plain Mac Pro. So the price is going to be a little bit higher because you're paying for that display as well. Now I can tell you about some of the specs. For the base price of $5,000, you're getting an 8-core Xeon all the way, and then obviously the price goes up depending on if you want to add more. So it's 8-core base going all the way up to 18 cores. Turbo boost up to 4.5. Now, before I go on to some of the other specs, now since it is a Xeon, you are losing that quick sync. For many people who do videos, quick sync basically is a hardware encoder into H.264. Makes it much faster. You're losing that capability, and a lot of people were, well, I'm not saying complaining about it, but you got to realize too, considering you can hold up to 128 gigabytes of RAM, an i7 processor doesn't support that much RAM, only Xeons. So perhaps this is the reason why they decided to put the Xeon in there. So yes, this iMac does use pretty much all workstation parts. Not saying all of them, but most of it. So you are getting 128 gig, or up to 128 gigabytes of ECC RAM, and let's make sure people understand that, because ECC, error correction code, is more expensive RAM. You are getting workstation graphics. Let me say that again: workstation graphics, not a gaming card. Now, considering it is an AMD. They consider their newer gaming cards with the RX designation, which this does not have. And they specifically point out this is a Pro workstation graphic card, which is up to a Radeon Pro Vega, up to 16 gigabytes of video RAM. I think the previous one is 8 gigabytes of video RAM, and up to 4 tetrabytes of SSD drive. And let me get a coffee, right? My throat's getting a little bit gnarly. Now, it is using a brand new cooling system, which utilizes 2 centrifugal cooling fans. Now, this is one of the problems I have with iMacs and Mac or Apple laptops is anytime you have a contained all-in-one system like the MacBook Pro or an iMac, or in this case iMac Pro, you usually have a problem with heat, and then a lot of times you're going to have throttling, especially with the CPU which has happened before. It's been, in fact, it's almost always happened on long renders and things like that. So it's going to be very interesting to see how if they're gonna, the cooling system is going to be good enough for this type of system. Of course, supposedly the 2013 Mac Pro did have some cooling issues, especially with the GPUs, but that's entirely different topic altogether. Before, well, let me go ahead and go into the graphics, which I've already explained. Radeon Pro Vega, which can do virtual reality (VR). A little bit system specs on this. It can do 11 teraflops single and 22 teraflops double precision. Like I said, up to 16 gigabytes of video RAM. Let me talk a little bit about the display, and that is, while I do love the Apple Cinema displays, supposedly they said they're going to stop making them. They changed their mind after a big response from the pros. In some instances, I don't think they're pro enough, especially for video editing and photography, and perhaps, well, 3D content creation not as much, because it is going to be 10-bit, which is great, but I think for those type of systems you need even a higher spec display. Perhaps I'm not sure I don't think it's going to support things like wide gambit such as Rec 2020, which even Final Cut Pro 10 now supports. So there's a little iffy on that type of display now, and for most cases it should be fine, but for the ultra accurate coloring system, I think Apple needs to improve their displays a little bit more for that kind of use. Now it also is going to support 4 Thunderbolts 3.0 ports using USB-C. First system, I believe, to use 10 gigabit Ethernet, which is nice. Display, which we did talk about a little bit earlier, is going to be 27-inch P3 color gambit, supporting slightly over 1 billion colors. Like I said, wish their displays are a little bit more, support more accurate color space, I think. But I don't know, perhaps they're trying to reach that 5K price point, or future revisions are going to maybe improve the screen even more. So I'm not saying this is going to be for everybody, but I do see a lot of people going toward the iMacs rather than the Mac Pros. So this is going to be a great system for many people. Some people, maybe not as much, but that 5K price point is kind of high. But like I said, you are using all workstation parts, and you have to add the price of the 5K Retina display as well. Give me your thoughts on this new iMac Pro. Is it good? Is it bad? Would it fill your needs or something else?